Hey friends, we're so glad to have you on the Rooted journey with us. Our hope is that through the Rooted experience, that you will grow in your relationship with God, that you'll grow in your love for our church, and that you'll grow in understanding of your purpose in God's great story. Here at Harbor Covenant, we found out about the Rooted experience through a friend of Pastor Michael's who had been doing it in her church. And since then, we've heard so many fun stories of how God has used Rooted to really ground people in all of the good things that He has for them. One of the aspects of Rooted that I am particularly excited about is the opportunity for us to read each week a story of what God is doing around the world. And so each week, as you do your reading, part of that reading is a story from a global Christian leader about how God is at work. And I think that this is a great opportunity for us to just expand our view of how God is on the move. Well, we can't wait to hear about how God is at work in your life through Rooted.
Welcome to Rooted. My name's Jeremy Kidd, and if you're with us right now, that means that you're ready to take this 10-week journey with our whole church, and we're calling it Rooted. So, if you're here, you've already got a couple of things. Hopefully you've gotten your Rooted books. If not, you're going to want to buy these ASAP. And if you're one of the leaders in your group, you're going to want to also make sure that you've gotten your hands on one of these great facilitator guides. Assuming you have those and you're here with your group, we're ready to go. The idea is for these small groups to be ongoing, faithful communities, even beyond the 10 weeks of Rooted. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. What is Rooted anyway? At its core, Rooted is about going back to basics. Now, what do I mean by basics? Well, think about it like a basketball player. Every basketball player, whether they're a kid just trying out basketball for their first time in a kids' league, or whether they're playing in the NBA, they've got to know the fundamentals of the game. They've got to practice them. They've got to be skilled in them. Every basketball player has to know how to dribble, how to pass, how to shoot the ball, how to take a free throw. They've got to know how to play solid defense, how to lay it up. And if you don't know how to do these things, or if you get out of practice, you're going to become a worse player, no matter what level you're at. These are absolutely essential skills for every single basketball player. So when I say going back to basics, I'm talking about those kinds of basics, the things that matter for every Christian living the Christian life, regardless of what level of spiritual maturity you are or how long you've been a Christian. It's about the basics of following Jesus. Well, we know what the basics and the fundamentals of basketball is, but what are the fundamentals of Christian discipleship? What are those basics we got to go back to? Here are some of the basics of a life of apprenticeship to Jesus. It means daily time with God, rhythms of prayer, repentance, sacrificial generosity, serving the community, sharing your story, and worshiping with fellow travelers on the journey of faith. So that's Rooted at its core, and we think this is super biblical. In Acts chapter 2, we see the early church modeling each and every one of these 7 rhythms of Rooted. So we really believe that it's fundamental to the Christian life, and at its core, that is what Rooted is. It's about coming together as a community, learning to live these basic rhythms, go back to the basics of faith, and really do it together. We believe these 7 rhythms are really fundamental, and they're going to help you connect to God, the church, and your purpose. Now, I know you guys have probably a ton of questions, and I want to make sure we're answering yours, so why don't you guys bring your questions right now?
Okay, so here's my problem. My group isn't meeting every week, right? So you said this is 10 weeks, but I don't know if that's gonna work. Are we gonna miss half the weeks? Are we gonna have to go longer? I just don't know if this is gonna work. I'm sort of panicked.
Whoa, it's all right, my friend. Don't worry. We've thought this through and we have got you covered. All right, so let's say your group is not meeting every single week. Are you gonna go longer? What's gonna be the deal? Here's what we're thinking. There are a few options that you can consider for your individual group to make sure that Rooted fits for you, but you also keep on the pace that we're doing as a whole church. So here are some options you might consider. First, you might have longer sessions so that you can do like a 2-in-1 sort of thing. Second, you might have your group do the reading and the homework on their own during the off weeks. Maybe you just message each other in between or something. And lastly, if you want to do longer sessions, you could just make it so that each session is kind of a condensed version of 2 sessions. whatever you decide, you'll want to keep on that 10-week pace. You don't want to go for 20 weeks because we're going to have a sermon series that is following the Rooted curriculum, and other groups are going to be doing this. This is really an all-church event, so however you decide to adapt it for your group's individual needs, you're going to want to complete the whole thing in 10 weeks if at all possible. All right, let's take another question. Yes, you over there.
Listen, son, I really like this idea, but I gotta be honest. I've been a Christian since before you were even a thought in the mind of God. So I'm just wondering, for those of us that have been around a while, is this just gonna be a review? Is there anything new for us to learn?
So the short answer is, if you're worried, you've been a lifelong Christian, and you're worried this is just going to be review, I think the answer to that question is no, it's not just going to be review. There's going to be something for you here. And there's two main reasons for that. One is, I really think a lot of the things you explore in Rooted are going to offer you a different perspective than you're used to. For most of us, we're lifelong Westerners, but the Rooted curriculum really offers us a global perspective on what it means to be a Christian and live the Christian life. This curriculum was originally developed by a church in Kenya, and it was only later adapted for a Western audience. So that's pretty cool. The second thing, and I think the biggest thing, is remember what I said about the basketball player. For us, we believe that these rhythms of life are just the fundamentals of the game, so to speak. This is what every Christian needs to know and needs to practice on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for their whole life in order to follow Jesus. So we're hoping that even if you've learned some of this stuff before, the refresher, the reminder, and just simply the practice of the basic skills of living the Christian life will be worth it for you. All right, I think we have time for just one more question and then we'll wrap this up.
Oh, right, my guy. I want you to know this sounds super exciting, but I want to do it. The problem is I'm kind of a busy guy. And it sounds to me from some of the stuff you're saying like there might be homework involved. And I just want to have you address that for a minute because I got a lot of stuff going on. For one, I do things and I just am worried that I won't have time. So can you speak to that a bit?
I think this is going to be a big issue for a lot of people. Is there homework, and am I going to be able to do this in my busy schedule? The short answer is yes, there is homework, and we're hoping that you'll make time to do it. But the long answer is don't pack up and leave your group right now. Don't panic. If you're a busy person and you're not sure you're going to have time for the homework a lot of days or a lot of weeks, don't worry about it. Still participate, still give this a chance. We're trying to make this as accessible as possible. Part of how we're doing that is the sermon series for the next 10 weeks is going to tie into what we're doing in Rooted. So that should give you at least some background for going into your group if you're listening to the sermons on Sundays. Second of all, the group leaders are going to be prepared to try and facilitate a discussion where some people have been poring over this all week and some people maybe they didn't spend much time at all. So we're going to try and incorporate everyone in the discussion, and we think there's something worthwhile for everyone regardless of their schedules. That being said, I cannot stress enough how important this is. These practices we really believe are transformative. There's nothing special about them, but at the end of the day, they are what we've seen from the early church in Acts seem to be essential to the Christian life of discipleship because they draw us closer to God. And God transforms our lives. We believe that everyone has a desire within them, a desire to know and to love God, to be close with God. If you want a close relationship with God, we believe that these practices are going to draw you closer to Him, closer to the church, and closer to understanding your purpose in God's plan. So we hope that you'll take the time to look at your schedule and see, if this is the priority, if this is what I desire most, how can I make time for 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day that I can spend on these practices? We believe it's going to be worth it for you. So give it a shot. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for participating in this with us. We're looking forward to taking the journey with you. Enjoy your first session.